Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode recap and thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the B segment of episode 13 of The Loud House. It's a loud, 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 loud house. We begin this segment with Lincoln looking for some spare change in the couch, and he comes across a quarter. After that, 9 of his 10 sisters appear. Lily is the only one not present, and they all demand the quarter for themselves. This is where they all get into a big fight until the Loud parents step in. Mr. Loud demands that they all clean the attic until they learn how to share money, but he also warns them about the loose floorboard up in the attic. Since the sisters blame Lincoln for the fight, they force him to clean the dark part of the attic. And while he is doing so, he comes across a letter. This letter comes from a woman by the name of Sharon DeMonet, and it turns out she was the previous owner of the house. She warns whoever is reading her letter not to let their family fight over money as hers did. She even hid some money somewhere in the house. She also mentions that whoever is reading the letter should reflect upon what she said. Lincoln mentions the letter to his sisters, but they blow it off, just thinking that he's looking for a way to get out of cleaning the attic. So Lincoln's determined to find the money himself, but then he hits the loose floorboard and it knocks him out. Once he's regained consciousness, his sisters are no longer in the attic, and as he leaves the attic, he finds Lisa using what looks to be a metal detector, but she tries to pass it off as something different. And as for the 8 other sisters, they're each divided into groups of 2. They've paired up with the sister that they share a room with, looking for something. Lenny ends up blurting out that they're looking for the money from Sharon DeMonet, and Lincoln does confront them about this. It's then where they get into another fight, and Mr. Loud demands they go back into the attic to clean it because they haven't learned their lesson yet. While they're up there, Lincoln pulls the letter out again to see if he missed anything from Sharon DeMonet's words, but then when he looks through the mirror in the attic, he finds another letter hanging on the rafter of one of the rafters of the attic. Get it? Mirror, reflect. So, as Lincoln reaches for the next letter, the other sisters find out about him finding it, and they demand he reads it. Once again, the letter pretty much is stressing that whoever is reading it shouldn't let their family fight over money as hers did, or else they'll never get to the bottom of it. But despite hearing this warning, the sisters don't heed it, and they end up turning the house into a battlefield for the money. Lincoln's really the only one who actually heeds the warning. But the sisters are quite vicious about removing or getting people out of their rooms or their turfs, as some of them puts it, and as Lincoln finds out the hard way, although he is able to fight back when they try to get into his room. And they end up going through the whole house, tearing it apart, looking for the money. And when they go into Lisa and Lily's room, where Lily is still asleep, they actually mute the fight so that they don't wake her up. When all's said and done, the sisters end up making a grab for the letter, and they end up ripping it apart. It's after that when the message, or Sharon DeMonet's warning, finally sinks in, and they agree to use teamwork to find out. After deciding this, Lily actually wakes up and goes to them, but then they find that there is another letter on, her bottom, and true enough, it's another message from Sharon DeMonet, who says that they're getting closer to finding the money now that they got to the bottom of this. Lincoln, however, brings up a very valid point. How would the previous owner of the house know that there would be a baby among the new owners of the house, and how would she know to put the letter there in the first place? Lola's response is just, Forget logic. Let's just get the money. That was actually pretty funny. So they all head out to the backyard where there's a big red X that wasn't there before. And as they start to dig, they find a briefcase. Lenny actually takes a metal thing out of her hair and she picks the lock of the briefcase to open it. She then comments to her surprised family that there's more in her head than just air. In the briefcase, it's $500 worth of money. The sisters and Lincoln all share it amongst each other, and they're all quite happy about this. We then see the Loud parents watching this from inside the house, and we find out Sharon DeMonet isn't a real person, and that the letters were actually made by Mr. Loud. You could say he came up with this, I think you could call it a scavenger hunt, in the hopes of teaching them about sharing money, and it seems to have worked quite well. But they did end up tearing through the house in the process, so Mrs. Loud has Mr. Loud be the one to clean the house. Mr. Loud is now in the attic, and although we don't see him, we do see his shadow on the wall. And he's actually the one who breaks the fourth wall this time around and talks to the audience. He then finds a dime on the attic floor and picks it up, but then he also ends up hitting the loose floorboard like his son before him did. And that's where we end the segment. Now, based on what I've read, there were some people that actually weren't too happy with this segment. From what I've read, it seems like some people took issue with how aggressive the Loud sisters were about kicking Lincoln out of their rooms when fighting over the money, but personally, though, I wasn't too bothered by that. To me, that just came off as typical siblings not getting along behavior. And that's probably because I feel like other segments have shown the Loud sisters doing much more vicious or much more questionable actions towards Lincoln. Like, I still feel what they pulled in Sound of Silence was worse than what they did here. But to me, I don't personally think this didn't really bother me a whole lot. Because I have the feeling that if any of the other sisters who didn't share a room with one of them tried to go into another sister's room, the ones who actually shared the room would probably have been just as vicious towards them as they were towards Lincoln. And to be fair, Lincoln was able to fight back when they tried to get into his room, so I think it evened out, so I didn't really have a problem with that. On the contrary, I actually quite liked this segment, and there were people who did like it too, so I agree with those individuals. I thought it was a good lesson about sharing money and working together as a team, and as we saw, the Loud siblings were quite an effective team when they actually put aside their differences and worked together. I also liked how Lenny was the one who picked the lock of the briefcase, and as she herself pointed out, there's more in her head than just air. I like that because, once again, this is another example of, even though the Loud sisters do have these big defining personalities, that's not all there is to them as characters. And that's what I liked here. It shows Lenny may be the airhead of the family, but there is more to her than just being an airhead. So, I thought that was a good thing. And otherwise, this was also a good showing on Mr. Loud's part to show he came up with a really brilliant plan to help his kids work together. And, well, when you look at it, Sharon DeMonet sharing the money, you can definitely see where Luann gets her sense of humor from. And I thought that was really nice of him to share his work bonus. That's right. Right, the $500 in the briefcase was actually Mr. Loud's work bonus, and he ended up sharing it with his kids to teach them how to share money, so that was a really nice gesture on his part. And overall, I like this segment. Between it and its sibling segment, I don't know if I really have a preference between the two. I both thought they were very enjoyable. So, with that said, we not only discussed both segments of episode 13 on this channel, but we've discussed half of season 1 of The Loud House on this channel, which means we have the second half of the first season to look forward to in the future. Take care, and until next time.